The following clip you're about to watch comes from a man who was just winding down after a long day, waiting to close up his shop. The last customer had walked out, the music was off, and he was sitting in that particular quiet that only exists in an empty business after hours, when he heard something that made him stop completely. A child's voice. As you will see, no one else was in that building. No music, no background noise, nothing that could have masked where it was coming from or confused what it was. Just him, the silence, and then that. What makes this clip particularly difficult to dismiss is that it wasn't caught on one camera. Two separate cameras picked it up from two different angles in the same space. Two independent pieces of recording equipment capturing the same sound at the same moment, which takes the idea of an audio glitch or a microphone artifact off the table fairly quickly. Listen carefully.
I'm taking it out.
Now, some people in the comments suggested a cat, and it's always worth considering the simplest explanation first. But listen carefully. That is not a cat. The cadence of it, the pitch, the way it forms and trails off, that's a small child. And once you hear it that way, it's very hard to unhear. What adds a layer to this that nobody in the comments was prepared for is the history of that space. That building used to be a dance studio, a ballet studio specifically, a place where children spent years of their lives learning, practicing, growing up within those walls. The kind of space that absorbs the energy of everything that happened inside it over decades of use. There is a theory that locations tied strongly to children, schools, studios, playgrounds, tend to hold on to something after the children are gone. That the repetition of the same movements, the same sounds, the same routines over years creates an imprint that doesn't simply disappear when the lease ends and the lights go off for the last time. So, what do you think it was that made that sound? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip was posted by someone whose dog had recently passed, and at 4:30 in the morning, while the entire household was asleep, their security camera picked up something moving through the house. Something small and familiar. Now before the footage, it's worth sitting with the timing for a moment. 4:30 in the morning is that specific hour where the house is at its most still, where the living are deepest in sleep, and the world outside hasn't started yet. In many spiritual traditions, it's considered one of the thinnest points of the night. Not quite the witching hour, but close enough to it that what moves through a home at that time tends to carry more weight than what moves through it at noon. The camera catches it moving through the space the way only that dog would have moved through it. Familiar with the layout, comfortable in the rooms, tracing a path that looks less like something exploring and more like something returning to a place it knew by heart. One comment in particular stopped people mid-scroll. Someone wrote that their mother always kept a cup of water out for visiting spirits, that according to her, when they come back, they're thirsty. That the least you can do for something that loved you enough to find its way back is leave something out for it. And something about that detail reframes the whole clip entirely, because this footage isn't frightening. It's something else. Dogs are creatures of loyalty above almost everything else. They learn the sound of your car from a distance. They wait by the door for hours. They find you in every room. And if any creature were inclined to make the journey back one more time, just to check that everyone was okay, just to walk those halls one last time, it would be a dog. So if your pet passed recently and something feels different in your house at night, maybe leave a bowl of water out, just in case. The following clip you're about to watch was posted by a family who wanted to document something that had been happening at their home, something they had already heard before, more than once, and had never been able to explain. Their outside security camera picks up the sound of knocking at their door, deliberate, patient, the kind of knocking that expects to be answered. And the camera, positioned to capture the entrance, shows exactly what's on the other side of that door. Nothing. No figure or shadow stretched across the floor the way any physical person standing at a door would cast one. And that detail is the one that closes every rational exit. Because even in low light, even at night, a body standing close enough to a door to knock on it will throw a shadow. There is no shadow. Whatever is knocking on that door does not have one. This apparently isn't the first time they've heard it either. The knocking has come before, at different hours, with the same patient rhythm, and every time they've checked, the same absence greets them. No one there, no shadow, no explanation. In paranormal tradition, knocking carries a specific and deeply unsettling significance. 3 knocks in particular are considered in many cultures to be a direct provocation, a mockery of the Holy Trinity, a calling card of something dark, announcing itself deliberately. But even beyond that specific belief, the act of knocking itself implies something that understands doors, something that knows what doors are for, something that knows that knocking is how you get someone to open one. And that is perhaps the most disturbing part of this entire clip. Not the sound itself, but what it suggests, that whatever is standing on that doorstep, shadowless and patient in the dark, has been there before, will likely come back again, and is in absolutely no hurry. What would you do if you were in their shoes? This next clip was posted by a woman who checked her brand new backyard camera after noticing something strange about her dogs, and what she found on that footage made her cry. She also mentioned at the end of her post that she wanted to throw the camera away, which tells you everything you need to know about what she saw before you even watch it. Both dogs had suddenly become alert and protective at the same time, out of nowhere, with no visible trigger. She pulled up the backyard camera. It had only been installed a couple of days earlier, which means whatever she captured on it had been out there before the camera existed to see it, moving around in her backyard on nights when there was nothing watching and no one knew. Watch closely. something is pacing back and forth in front of the tree line, not passing through, not moving in a single direction, pacing. The way something paces when it's agitated or waiting or marking the edges of a boundary it considers its own. The magnified version makes it harder to look away from and harder to explain. Pacing behavior in paranormal research is one of the more consistent and documented patterns associated with territorial presences, entities that move repeatedly along the same line, the same boundary, the same stretch of ground, as if protecting something or preventing something from crossing over. The tree line is a significant detail too, because the edge between open ground and dense trees has long been treated in folklore across multiple cultures as a threshold, a boundary between the known and the unknown, between the safe and the unsafe. The dogs knew before the camera did. They were already standing guard before she ever checked the footage. And whatever they were reacting to had apparently been out there long enough to feel completely at home in that backyard. She wanted to throw the camera away after seeing that footage. But the real question isn't what's on that recording. It's whether getting rid of the camera would make whatever is pacing that tree line go away or just make it invisible again. I'll leave you to be the judge of that. This next clip comes from a municipal garage in northwest Indiana that has been triggering police alerts for years. Officers responding to those alerts found the same thing every single time. Nothing. No intruder. No explanation. Just a space that kept setting off alarms for no visible reason. Eventually, the boss had enough and installed cameras inside to find out what was making a mess in there at night. This is the first clip he sent out. Nobody is in that office. Lights are off. Look carefully at the center of the frame, just beneath where the chair was sitting. There's a bright spot that sits completely still throughout the footage. And then the moment the second chair gets pulled toward it, it vanishes. One viewer described it as a rift, a stable anomaly that held its shape until the sound and movement of the chair disrupted whatever was maintaining it. Some investigators believe these kinds of visual anomalies represent points where the boundary between spaces becomes temporarily unstable. Not quite a doorway, but close enough to one that things can move through it when conditions are right. The door slamming, the chair dragging, the figure moving through the office afterward, all of it radiating outward from that one spot on the floor. Police responded to that garage countless times and found nothing, but the camera found something on the very first night. Whatever has been in that building all along, it apparently had no problem performing for an audience. This next clip comes from a house that has been anything but quiet. The family who lives there has been hearing a baby crying for a long time. Many of them have. But this was the first time it went on for as long as it did. And the crying is just the beginning of what has been happening in that home. The list of experiences this family has documented is the kind that builds a picture you can't look away from. Orbs appearing at different hours, blankets being tugged and jerked off sleeping people in the night, feet being tickled by something unseen, the wife waking up to a man standing at the foot of the bed, solid, visible, and then simply gone. A figure seen clearly at the bottom of the stairs, an intercom thrown off a table, objects flying off a dresser without warning, and all of it, every single incident, happening between midnight and 4 or 5 in the morning, and then stopping completely, like whatever is active in that house runs on a schedule. With that in mind, watch this.
hear baby crying? Yeah, I opened the door. Oh, I thought that's why you opened the door. I heard it crying a long time in here.
That pattern alone, the consistency of the time frame, is one of the details that sits most uncomfortably with paranormal researchers. Random hauntings don't keep hours, but something that activates at midnight and quiets before dawn, night after night without variation, suggests a presence with a routine. Something that has been doing this long enough to have settled into a rhythm. The family believes something bad happened to a child in that house, and the crying that multiple people have heard that has been going on long enough to feel familiar fits that belief in a way that's hard to argue with. In cases where a traumatic event involving a child has occurred in a space, the residual energy left behind tends to be among the most persistent and the most audible, replaying not randomly but regularly, tied to the hours when whatever happened. Whatever is in that house has made itself known in almost every room, to almost every person living there, in ways that are impossible to collectively imagine or misinterpret. But what do you think is really going on in that house? I'll leave you to be the judge. This next clip comes from Sri Lanka, posted by someone who opened with a statement that makes what follows even more interesting. She doesn't believe in the paranormal at all, and yet she told everyone to watch the whole thing. Her dogs start barking at someone moving along the street outside. Nothing unusual about that. Dogs bark at strangers, it happens. But watch how that stranger respond, or rather, how they don't. The dogs aren't just barking from a distance, they're behind this person, close enough that any living human being would have at minimum picked up their pace, flinched, done something. Instead, the figure just keeps moving, slowly, calmly, completely unbothered by two dogs reacting with everything they have. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong to someone who simply has nerves of steel, but to something that simply doesn't register the dogs as a threat because it exists on a different plane entirely. And then it disappears. Not around a corner, not out of frame, gone. There one moment, and then simply not there. The way something disappears when it was never fully solid to begin with. And then the lights in her house start going on and off. That sequence, the unnatural calm, the disappearance, and then the immediate electrical disturbance inside her home is the kind of chain reaction that paranormal investigators point to as evidence of a presence moving from one space to another, carrying its energy with it, announcing its arrival in the only language that electricity understands. She said she doesn't believe in the paranormal, but somewhere between watching that figure dissolve into nothing and watching her lights respond to something that was no longer outside, that position may have become a little harder to hold. If you were standing in that house, watching your lights flicker after seeing what that camera caught, would you still be a skeptic?